we are working on solving environmental problems. We are doing that by engaging lots of people. Think of Tesla as a model. Tesla engaged a lot of people in buying cars. I'm a 3-time 8-year Tesla owner myself, and helped to change the auto industry. So the auto industry has completely transformed and is transforming as a result of basically electrification of transportation. We see that there are big global problems. Everyone else knows of these too. And we are creating a transformative platform that allows people to engage as customers, as vendors, as partners, as investors, as employees, to help create the same type of transition. Hang on a second, I'm on the wrong one here. So our vision is to create what we call charge parks, which is a trademark term of our company. We think that the existing charging for EVs is the wrong model and it doesn't scale. So when you think about today, less than 1% of the US fleet is electric. As we see that GM and Ford and other major makers have stated that in 2030 or 2035, they're going to be all EV. Obviously, in the future, that means that Washington and California are all going to be EV. It means that we're going to have a significant percentage of the fleet. And when you get to that point, you'll pretty quickly figure out that the charging networks that exist and are being built right now are all grid connected, and the grid doesn't have adequate power to support all of those. That's one problem. A second problem is user experience. Again, as an 8-year Tesla owner, I've been up and down the Tesla supercharger network, which is fantastic by comparison to all other existing charging systems. And even that leaves a lot to be desired. These are typically in locations that don't have a lot of services around them. So when you're there charging your car for 20 or 30 minutes, you can play with your phone. And that's essentially what you can do. In addition to that, currently the state is, well, let me get to that in a minute. So I'm going to refer back to this, which is it's a mixed reality model of an 11-acre site that is one of our first, and I'll talk more about that as it goes on. But basically the concept here is that we need to have charge parks about every 50 miles to handle two key problems in adoption of EVs. One key problem is range anxiety. So people that start driving EVs pretty quickly figure out that they have a loss of spontaneity, which is the second problem, because of range anxiety. And it basically means that you get to a point where you're feeling like I'm not going to have enough power to go and do what I want to do and get back to wherever I need to get to charge, usually home. Or in the case of taking a road trip somewhere, it's to wherever your destination is, where you might have a destination charger. And so those problems need to be addressed by having a significant enough infrastructure. And the problem that we're trying to solve is really an adoption of EV problem. So if you think about these need to be about every 50 miles on the interstate freeway system, there's about 50,000 miles of the lower 48 interstate freeway system, which gives us 1,000 charge parks, which is why our target is 1,000. So now to talk about our renewable energy capture, storage, and sale business, which is called Kilos. In partnership with EV automakers, and we are in conversations with global automakers right now, even with some of their global M&A groups. But basically, when you think about what we're doing, we have a 11-acre parcel shown here. It's the same one I showed you in the previous slide, where all of our structures are container-based structures, so that we have minimum site work to do, minimum permitting. It allows us to quickly scale an existing site. All of them are covered with solar, which creates about 1 to 2 megawatts of solar and wind where wind is appropriate. That power is then stored in 0.5 megawatt 20-foot container batteries that are plopped on the site with charge posts connected to them, not the ground, so that all of this is literally portable and transportable. And it allows for very granular and gradual growth based upon demand. So unlike a lot of the network systems that are out there where they raise a tremendous amount of capital and the capital sits idle because the demand isn't there yet, we are building to demand. And so as our relationships with EV automakers grows, it allows us to expand the supply side. Tesla has sold 150 of these 300 and 500 mile, 80,000 pound gross vehicle weight semis that are being delivered mostly to fleet operators this year and early next year. So it's one of the things that we're going to see is the need to have charging available for trucks. So when you look at the model here on this site, this is EV vehicle, this is car charging, and this is semi charging here. And so these are the islands that I'm showing in the slide that I just was on, this one. These are the islands here. So it allows for us to grow these based upon demand. But obviously in the future, semis are going to be an enormous part of the transportation mix that's going to need charging. These are going to have 1 to 2 megawatt hour batteries, which is about 10 to 20 times the state of a standard Tesla EV battery today. And they need to have infrastructure that doesn't yet exist. Even Tesla supercharger doesn't have adequate capacity for that. We also are addressing food security and food quality through controlled environment agriculture. One of the things that a lot of people don't know is that agriculture contributes more to climate change than transportation does. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but it stems from soil turning to dirt based upon large-scale big ag practices, including pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers that essentially kill the organisms in the top couple of feet of soil. And we are now losing our arable soil. As we are growing from 7.5 billion to 10 billion people over the next 20 years, we are running out of water and we are running out of arable land. And that creates a real food security issue in the future. What we need is controlled environment agriculture, or it's commonly known as vertical farming also. And what we are doing is building, again, a container-based solution in partnership with a Canadian company that's about 2 hours north of us. This is 16 40-foot containers put together with a tent structure over the middle. The guy's standing in that tent-like structure, looking in the end of one of these containers, which has 252 trays on stainless steel conveyor belts that expose the plants to the lighting system in the top. And this creates a super efficient growing environment with no pesticides, no herbicides, no heavy metals in the fertilizers. This part of our campus, which is in North Bend, Washington, is dedicated to this process. And when you look at each one of these containers, each one of these 40-foot containers produces about the equivalent of an acre of conventional land farming. So our executive team includes myself. I'm a 35-year serial entrepreneur, been involved in all kinds of different industries, had some successful exits and some horrible flameouts as well. Jay is our strategist. He's been involved in all kinds of interesting endeavors also. Has been a VC for a number of years, has run an aerospace enterprise for about 10 years. Rob Frederick is a very famous but unknown guy at the same time. He is the founder of AWS, who built AWS for Bezos at Amazon, and after a few years left and created a new company, which is building an abstraction layer, a software abstraction layer on top of AWS, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure. That abstraction layer allows for Fortune 500s to quickly develop apps with scalability. And Rob is joining our company full time. As we get into the later stages here, we're acquiring his company because he wants his technology to be used for environmental purposes. My sister is a 30-year off-the-grid resident. She has been involved with sustainability since long before people even knew what that word meant. She's also been involved with human services for a very long time. And David Lobb is a serial entrepreneur. He's been involved in lots of different industries, including he's involved with a company that sells human cells for research purposes, and an excellent background in finance. I'm going to take you through some of our other team members, but starting with Joel Egan, who's for 20 years run a company called Cargo Texture here in Seattle. That is all about using containers, of which there are 30 million in circulation. They're stacking up in U.S. ports today because of the trade imbalance. And so the containers are very inexpensive. They're amazingly sturdy structures. You can put 1 million pounds on top of a container. They're very inexpensive. They are very easy to move because they're very standardized. And so you can see, for example, that Starbucks has built 45 Starbucks stores out of containers. So everything on our campuses is container oriented. This is a construction company that's partnered with us. They have done large scale construction, mostly commercial and industrial projects in about 25 states. They have joined us to develop our charge parks in 48 states. And they're very excited about what we're doing because of the speed at which we can roll this out and what it does. Green River is an engineering company that's been involved with a number of significant solar and renewable energies projects across the country. Also very interested and excited about this. Jeff is the CEO of Mixed Reality, who has developed the mixed reality modeling of all of our sites. So we have a very detailed model that allows for basically taking a Lego approach to these sites and reconfiguring them in real time. Van Katzman is part of Ascent, who's our corporate counsel. Van S. Feldman is primarily an energy and resources firm. We've been working with them for permitting and for access to people at the mayor, city level, and county level in building and land use planning and solar. Stokes Lawrence is a firm we're using for our REIT, a real estate investment trust, for financing the acquisition of all of the properties. And BDO is handling our tax matters for our real estate investment trust. So I appreciate your time today. We are transforming a number of industries like Tesla did the auto industry. We are currently raising funds in a Reg D safe, and we plan to be a public company sometime in the near term. And if you're interested in more information about this, please let us know.